Hello and welcome to this budget special. My guest today is V. Anantha Nageswaran, who is the Chief Economic Advisor for Government of India. Mr. Nageswaran, thank you very much for joining us today on ET Now. Sir, the survey lays out a medium-term growth target of 6.5% on an average. And for FY27, we have a 6.8 to 7.2% GDP growth. What are the kind of structural reforms that we would need to push this target higher?
We did. First of all, it's the reforms that we have been able to accomplish in the last several years are the key reasons is the reason why we have upgraded it from 6.5 to 7. Now, what would take us from 7 to 7.5 or 8 depends on addressing pending issues with related to land reforms, conversion of land from agri to non-agri use. Reducing cross-subsidization so that the input cost to industry becomes cheaper, and also at some point bringing in fuels into GST, etc. So and education sector, where we are able to move from enrollment to education quality outcomes. These are all the various reform areas that would help us take it even further. Back to you.
You also mentioned in the survey about the rupee depreciation, because we have seen rupee depreciating by nearly 6.5% since April. How do you see the depreciation, rupee depreciation moving from here on? Even though as of now it may not be a bad thing because we are countering tariff wars or US tariff war issues currently, so it may be a good thing for us because our exports get little bit of buffer in that sense. But going forward, given the fact that we have capital outflows, continuous capital outflows from the market, how do you see rupee from this point of time?
Look, I can't give you a forecast, and that's not my job either. All I can say is that yes, at this point it is not exactly disruptive, but whether it becomes disruptive or not, at what stage, it is difficult to be precise here. And we have also written about what it takes for a country to achieve strong and stable currency over time. So I think I'm not in a position to add anything more than that. Back to you.
Sir, one of the key, things which we have seen in the last many years of budget is the kind of capex spending which has been there. Do you think that there is a need to sustain the same rate of capex spending at 10%, or we can accelerate from here on?
Look, again, it's a matter of few days before you see the budget. I think we can all wait to see what kind of numbers we get.
One of the interesting fact which is there in the economic survey is the kind of state innovations which have been done in various schemes and subsidies. DBT for farmers, or for that matter, how technology has been used for many of the sectors by some of the states. Do you see going for DBT for farmers or for fertilizers, for that matter, would be a good way to bring in more efficiency?
No, I think we have written about it in a box item. It's important to look at the way we compensate farmers for fertilizer prices, how to do it in a manner that it helps soil nutrition to be elevated, etc., and also therefore restoring a certain different kind of mix. How it can be done is something we have written about in the in the chapter on agriculture, and that's exactly what you pointed out. So there are multiple ways of doing it, but it's important to make sure that we are able to nourish the soil and boost productivity rather than leading to a sort of a relatively mindless application of the fertilizer that is the cheapest. So I think there are multiple ways of achieving the outcome, and direct cash transfer is one of them.
If I look at one of the chapters, you've spoken about monetization of public sector banks. You've also spoken about the fact that maybe the threshold should be brought down from 51% to 26%, still retaining the control by the government. Is that feasible in the current scenario?
That we don't know. Our job is to highlight some of the possibilities that exist, but whether it is feasible, in what time frame and what speed, is for policymakers to decide.
Sir, The finance minister has been articulating that we have to move towards a debt to GDP, metrics from away from the fiscal deficit metrics. She's also pointing to the fact that many of the states have a higher debt component. How do you bring in this fiscal discipline with the states? Should the government incentivize in some format so that the debt to GSDP is within the limits for quite a few states?
No, I think it's not appropriate on my part to speculate on it at this point. It needs an application of mind. We'll wait and see what the Finance Commission has come up with, and then we will be probably able to have a conversation on this.
Another aspect which is of importance is the capital outflows that we have seen in the last 12 to 15 months. Nearly 22 to 22 billion dollars of outflows have happened. As a chief economic advisor, so what is the kind of policy measures that could be taken to ensure that there's a arrest of this capital outflows, whether through portfolio investors or through a foreign direct investors which is going out?
Portfolio flows are cyclical in nature. They come in and they go out. There are multiple considerations. Some of them are within our limits. Some of them are beyond our control. So we can only act on those that are in our control. If there are other reasons why they diversify or come back, it has happened over the years. It's not the first time. So I don't think we should exaggerate the importance. And also our levers are relatively limited to domestic policy. We can provide tax certainty. We are not unreasonable in our tax rates. We can look at other processes that we do, etc. But depending on how they perceive about the market risk return trade-off and what they get elsewhere, some of them could be right, some of them could be wrong reasons. But there are multiple considerations. We can only focus on what we can do in the domestic policy space, and we are doing that. Some of these developments could be also because of geopolitical developments, in which case we have little influence over that, over the kind of choices that portfolio investors make.
Hello and welcome. This is India Tonight. I'm Shibani Gharat, and joining me in this beautiful setup from our Mumbai studio is my colleague Ankur Mishra. Now, the big story today is the Economic Survey 25-26, which has painted a rosy picture of the domestic growth outlook, isn't it, Ankur? Raising the country's medium-term outlook to 7% as compared to earlier estimate of 6.5%. However, simultaneously outlined a relatively grim outlook for the global economy, estimating a 10 to 20% chance that a crisis worse than the global financial crisis of 2008 is unfolding in 2026. So interesting times
yes,
for us going forward, Ankur.
Definitely. And first time that in the economic survey, there's a quantification. The quantification is done on the global disorder probability, which has been highlighted first time in the economic survey. But more importantly, there is clear outline of the fact that interest rate alone cannot lower the cost of capital. And of course, the GDP growth, the potential growth of India is now 7%. And of course, the first half has been amazing. But the economic survey did talk about FY27, we can reach to 6.8%. But to decode the economic survey, we have consulting editor ET Now, Swaminathan Aiyar. Welcome, Mr. Aiyar. First question to you. What is your first reading of economic survey? This time, do you think that quantification is at least there on all the facts which has been presented?
One of my reactions would be there are many economic surveys where you just get a long list of dull, boring facts about what has happened in the previous year. This economic survey, however, is brimming with ideas, some of them quite controversial. For instance, this particular survey is attacking freebies in very, very open way. I have not seen this done that, we have a situation today where the government, the ruling parties, are going in favor of more and more cash freebies. And these have been very successful. In the Maharashtra election and the Bihar elections, There are some political analysts who say the clinching factor of the NDA in both those cases was cash freebies. In which case, of course, I'm afraid politicians will say, well, thank you very much, Mr. Nageswaran, but what we do in the elections is our business, and we are going to go to freebies because winning elections immediately is an extremely important short-term objective, which we cannot put away. So I said, it seems to me that I'm glad he has made this particular point. But I think it also needs to be said that in Latin America, there have been other recent examples of unconditional cash transfers which have proved just as good or even more effective than the conditional cash transfers, the schemes in Mexico and Brazil, which the survey had referred to. So this is an open thing, but I'm glad that somebody is opening and raising these issues. On the other key thing I would say is to say that we have broken out from 6.5 to 7. I myself, in fact, made this argument in a column not so long ago, because I think in the last 5 quarters, again and again and again, the economy is beating market expectations and beating them not just by 0.1, but by 0.2, but sometimes by almost full 100 basis points. So it appears that there is something very fundamentally coming up. Whatever is happening is not the result of any silver bullet that has been let fly by the BJP right now. It appears to be the cumulative strengthening of India's total sinews, the coming together of the startup culture, of the global capability. All of this has come together, and that makes a huge difference. To an ordinary person, 6.5 to 7 may not look very, very large, but it translates into hundreds of thousands and thousands of crores. So I would say that if we have moved to this higher level, a lot of things will be taken care of. It will mean, for instance, that fiscal consolidation becomes much easier. It means that you will be able to do fiscal consolidation and high capex at the same time, which might otherwise be difficult. It may even mean that you will be able to get away with all the freebies without the risks mentioned in the economic survey.
Sir, Mr. Aiyar, the economic survey paints sort of a Goldilocks economy, high growth, record low inflation, a $700 billion forex fortress. But at the same time, if we see the internal vitals are perfect, but at the same time, there is a warning of sort of a paradox where global order is no longer rewarding sort of our success. So we are preparing, if I were to give an F1 example, we are preparing a world-class engine while the tracks are being pulled off. Is that the kind of situation that we are being warned about?
I think the economic survey has done well. On the one hand, it has shown how the worst case scenarios can truly be terrible. Absolute chaos. And the probabilities are pretty high, going up to 40%. For 2 scenarios, 40%. Another scenario where maybe things are much better. But I merely say that, therefore, on the one hand, the survey has done well to point out there are very substantial risks and some pretty disastrous scenarios. You cannot rule them out. Nevertheless, having taken all those headwinds into account, the survey concludes that we are on a good wicket. We have already proved our resilience, our ability to stand up to international typhoons. And even while standing up to the international typhoons, we've actually increased our growth rate and kept beating all the predictions. So, this is an economic survey which has a lot of confidence, a lot of strength behind it, even as it acknowledges the weaknesses, even as it acknowledges the global headwinds, and even as it acknowledges some domestic political difficulties in doing what needs to be done.
Right. I want to understand from you the growth numbers, as you were saying that we have now consistently beaten the estimates. Last year, economic survey forecasted around 6.8% at the upper end. We have now come much far than where we forecasted. Not only economic survey, even Reserve Bank of India has not been perfect in forecasting the growth which is there. So what do you think is missing? And of course, can we even outpace the forecast which has been done now?
No, I would say, look, the first and foremost job that the Prime Minister or any Chief Minister will say is, how can I get re-elected? It is not whether you reach a particular target by 2047 when somebody else will be in power. We have a situation where elections are top priority. Fortunately, this year, I do not think uh, the elections like West Bengal, Tamil Nadu, Assam, I mean, these are not the things that are going to shake anything. It appears that, because the opposition already rules Tamil Nadu and West Bengal, maybe it will be repeated. So, they're not going to shake the boat on the politics. But the lesson that has been learned from Bihar and from the Maharashtra election, if you say, one case the freebie was 2,500, next freebie was 10,000. Now, which will be the next freebie, and will that be even more? And it's a game that could be played by incumbents like Mamta, not just by the BJP. So, in some sense, the danger to me, one of the dangers of all the scenarios is that while Mr. Nageswaran hopes that we will be able to overcome these challenges, we will be able to resist a slide into freebies. That might nevertheless take place. And so I said, political economy first. The aim is not, as some economists might think, how do we achieve Viksit Bharat targets? They are not uppermost in the minds of the people. First of all, the BJP will say, is there any way I can win West Bengal? And I think one of them will be to use promises.
Absolutely, a political economy first. And, one of the interesting points also in the economic survey is, the mention of the so-called orange economy, where creative talent and, orange economy is hailed as the next pillar of growth. However, an interesting piece from the economic survey has come in that the report shows that 40% of our gig workers, by the way, are earning less than 15,000 rupees a month at the same time. So, if you look at the survey, does it look like, does this entire growth story look magnificent, so to speak, on spreadsheets, but remain structurally unable to lift the masses, the floor of the masses that we have today?
I will simply say that, I don't know how to satisfy people enough. Here are voluntary, we have a situation on the one hand where people say, I don't have the skills, therefore I'm not getting any job. Then along comes the gig economy. Potentially millions of new jobs are being created. I have been in small towns seeing people just sitting out there with absolutely nothing to do, sitting at a chai shop all day and just chatting. If those same people are gig workers at 15,000, it is a huge improvement on just sitting on your ass and doing nothing and wailing about the state of affairs. So let us not run down the gig economy. It is one of the outcomes of whatever we are seeing. You will find that computerization, robotization, artificial intelligence, all of these, they are going to knock off and finish a number of old kind jobs. The new things that will come up will include the gig economy. Don't knock it, because the gig economy has come up and is employing millions without any subsidy, without any particular thing. Now you can go ahead and say, okay, I will have some ways of giving them social security. I will have some ways of improving their position beyond mere casual workers. You can go ahead and do that. But please, let us celebrate the fact that while we have a problem, artificial intelligence and robotization, they are going to be destroying some jobs. Some new ones will come up. Some of them may be in the high-tech sector where people with good education can be employed. But a whole lot of them with poor education, I would say, please ask them that, if the gig economy disappeared tomorrow, what would they think? And the plain fact is, while you have some NGOs almost arguing as though the gig economy is a terrible thing, I think it is an extremely positive thing that is given useful, worthwhile employment. And the people who are riding out there, would they like more? But of course, but I would like more too. I dare say the two of you would like more too. So, I would say that when there is a voluntary agreement between millions of gig workers and these employers, for outsiders to say that this is a terrible state of affairs, I would disagree. I think it is an appropriate market solution that we have to that unemployment among unskilled people.
Definitely, I want your focus on the fact that economic survey says that interest rates alone cannot lower cost of capital because problem is structural. What do you think are the steps which can be taken by the government? Now, economic survey is clearly saying that RBI alone cannot solve the problem because cost of capital is a structural problem. How do you think government should solve it?
I'm surprised that on the one hand, the economic survey wants to boast about, how fantastic we are and how the whole world should be coming here. But if the whole world should be coming here, frankly, it will come in sufficient degree. I think the economic survey unnecessarily seems to worry that, we are running a balance of payments deficit and therefore we are dependent on foreign capital. So what? If you look at the growth stories of Singapore back in the 60s, you look at South Korea, other people, they also had huge inflows of foreign capital. They also ran enormous trade deficits for decades. And that was successful. There's no problem. Now, if you are running a current account deficit of 3% of GDP, I would worry a great deal because it would not be sustainable. Right now, the current account deficit is closer to just 1%. I mean, it is peanuts. So I would say we are so very comfortable on this that even though FDI has not been very strong, even though the FIIs on balance, I think there has been hardly any FII investment on a net basis in the last 4 years. And yet, we have the strength that the domestic market has sustained it. So you have to ask, which is better? Is it better that we have a stock market that is sustained by our own domestic investors and rewards people quite well? Or should we be in the situation that we are dependent and should get more and more foreign capital? I would say no, I think we're better off this way. I think I would also add one thing. One reason why the FIIs are not coming in is that the domestic investment pipeline is so strong. The systemic investment plans are pouring 30,000 crores a month into this particular market. When that is so strong, it means the valuations become high. And therefore, the foreign investors are saying, okay, for now, I will withdraw and look for other places. So in this case, the fact that the foreigners are withdrawing and cashing their profits and looking for valuations elsewhere should be a compliment. That this is a country doing so well with such a strong domestic base that we better look for somewhere else if we want to make an easy killing.
But at the same time, the economic survey also mentions a $701 billion forex, buffer. So let's just speak about that a little bit. So we have hit this massive figure of $701 billion in foreign reserves. How can India utilize this effectively and strategically going forward?
I would say that India should be wary of running its foreign exchange reserves down to a low level. But right now, there appears to be no problem. I mean, the foreign exchange reserves are more or less steady. Are they enough to take care of any contingencies that we can think of? I would say yes. So at this particular point, I would say no problem. How can you increase your foreign exchange reserves? I don't think it should be an aim. The target should not be increasing foreign exchange reserves. If we happen to have a very large capital inflow that we cannot utilize fully, by all means, let the RBI come in and let that particular thing be put in the forex reserves, which in effect means it is being put abroad into US Treasury bills and other such things. So I would say as of now, foreign exchange reserves are comfortable. I do not think the reserves issue is going to materially affect economic outcomes or economic decisions in the coming few years.
Right. And one of the issues which has been recently is weakening of rupee. However, economic survey does give their own rationale of how the currency is steady. What is your take on that front?
I will simply say that, a weak rupee does not mean a weak economy, just as a strong rupee does not mean a strong economy. The two shouldn't be confused. I would say that if you want the rupee to be playing a proper role, international market, if you want to gain stature, you must allow the market by and large to determine whatever is happening. The notion that the RBI should step in with a very big way to either try and prop the rupee up or down, I have grave reservations on that. The Asian financial crisis actually began that way, of countries trying to peg their currencies to the dollar and then fight against the foreign investors. And ultimately, you got this huge collapse. So I would say, RBI says that, we don't attempt to actually influence the market. We just try to take care of excess volatility. Well, I'm afraid RBI does more than that. Yes, it does have levers to twist arms in the market, but of a limited nature. If the market decides that's going to get you, it will get you. But fortunately, the Indian macroeconomic situation is very good, as opposed to Thailand or Korea's situation, if you go back to 1998 when the Asian financial crisis took place. So I would say right now, okay.
Kind of FTAs that India is engaging in for the year, how do you see that impacting the country going forward? We just had like a mother of all deals with the EU, of course the trade deal with Oman, with New Zealand. So how will that impact the country going forward?
The one that matters is with the EU. The others, frankly, hardly matter. But the EU one is a relatively big one. But please remember that it won't come till 2027. And don't expect trade only with one part of the world economy to drive the entire Indian GDP growth. But yes, I'm happy it has come about. Let us hope that it does result in a doubling of trade between the two blocks. It's a very necessary counter we have. You see, which are the places with the large markets we wanted to enter? Really, one was Europe, one was the USA. A third, if you like, it is China, which is difficult to crack. But with the USA, we are having such troubles that in some sense the EU then has a very increased importance. As look, this is a really big market, a complementary market, we need to get into it. So I'm glad to see that the deal is being struck. However, don't expect any impact in the coming year. Only once it's signed into law, after that, and even after that, it may take 6 months, 1 year before it gets running. So yes, 2027, 2028, at that particular point, I think you will see that extra push coming into the economy, and we must therefore welcome it. The big question then is, does this mean we should go back into the RCEP with China? And I think there is a case for doing that. People are very worried on the security side. And ultimately, the security angle will have to be taken care of. But I do think there is a case for a second look at RCEP.
Point taken. Now that leads to the second question regarding the deal which we all are waiting for, India-US trade deal, and even the economic survey mentioned that this year there is a possibility that it could happen. But my question to you is, now the budget is a few hours ago. Do you think that there will be steps which will be announced in the budget, keeping that in mind? And if yes, what could be those? All right. We have some technical issue. We'll connect back with Mr. Swaminathan Aiyar. But for now, it is clear from economic survey, it is not just the strength of the economy, it is not just the speed of the economy, but structure of the economy that matters. Thank you so much for tuning in, but do watch our next segment after the break.